Shall we introduce
So,
ourselves?
yeah. So I'm Anna, and I'm the founder of Neurowise, which is a coaching and training practice for neurodiverse families, specialising particularly in FASD, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder.
Woo! Yeah,
Yay!
very good. And I'm none of those things. I'm not Anna, and I didn't found Neurowise. I'm Becky, and I work with Anna. And I've got an adopted child with FASD, and I'm studying my doctorate at the moment, doing my research into post-adoption social work with families with a child with a suspected or confirmed diagnosis of FASD. So I'm a social worker, and I have been for 20 years now. I was going
20
to
years.
celebrate it, wasn't I? I was going to do something exciting to celebrate 20 years in social work. I even
Yeah, did you do
up
anything?
No, I looked up, like I think I asked ChatGPT, what do you do to celebrate 20 years in social? It's probably the only time that AI was confounded. I was like, why? What do you want to do that for? So I got nowhere with that. No, nowhere.
I should have said as well, shouldn't I, about my little 12-year-old, also with FASD, my little
Yeah,
case study, who's inspired all the work, basically. The
yes,
personal kind of motivator.
yeah.
And so we're going to be talking about rest, a massive topic,
Oh,
a
I need a
massive
rest.
topic that came up a lot in the research I did on FASD caregivers and their well-being needs. And it was just a constant theme talking to people about, first of all, how relentless it is looking after kids with
That's a good
FASD.
word, isn't it? Relentless. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and my partner was talking about that today as well. Like there was another word as well that she used that was like relentless. But anyway, yeah, relentless is such a thing. And it's not really talked about that much, is it? But the sort of incessant nature of it is just
Yeah, I think it's we've just gone through a period of a couple of weeks where my little girl did not sleep for no apparent reason, really. Normally we're really lucky because we know from the research and from what parents are telling us that sleep and FASD like a nightmare for most people. And that can be for the whole life long of a person with FASD, can't it? Which must be absolutely awful. But she normally does sleep really well. We're really lucky. But just the past couple of weeks, she just decided, just for a laugh, to not sleep and to wake at like 2 and 3. And then she's got no idea of time. So she just stays awake for the rest of the night. And it's just really hard. So it's starting to come out of that now. But I think like you think one thing's sorted, or you think you're on an even keel, and then like that things just throw you into a state of disequilibrium. That is the word, isn't it? Again. So yeah, I guess that's a factor of the relentlessness, is that it changes in nature, but it's always there.
yeah.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
always an element of it, no matter what it is. Yeah, and things shift and change, and some things get better, and then something else comes up, and it's like, yeah.
yeah,
What
yeah.
for me, one of the things as well is the unpredictability and the sort of volatility of it. So you just never know what's going to happen next, and you can never feel completely you can't trust in it when you do get rest, or it's
Mm.
hard to anyway.
Yeah. And I think it's really
So
hard to rest at home. I don't know about you guys, but our home does not feel like an easy place or space to relax, like to really lower your
no.
guard and let your brain kind of go, it's okay, I'm safe here. I can chill out. So when we do get, and I know we're going to talk a bit more about this, but when we do get our one night respite and we go somewhere else, it's just this palpable feeling of being able to just let go a little bit and feel like, oh, yeah, no, this is it's a bit, I feel a bit sad because home doesn't feel like a restful place, and I always
Mm,
wanted it to. So
mm,
yeah, I think your physical environment isn't offering that either, which is
that's a
far
massive
quite
thing for
different.
us, because we are really lucky as well to get respite funding, and we go away for that, and someone comes to look after our son here at home, which is brilliant and is better than the previous idea of maybe getting a foster carer or you get some way of like him being taken out of the home. It's better that he gets looked after here. But it does mean that we don't rest here, like you say, and it's something that we miss, I think, is just being able to rest in our own environment, in our own home.
Yeah.
Because when our son's here, he can't relax, he can't rest. So I think that's a big thing as well, the knock-on of that, isn't it? A lot of people with FASD, they just literally can't relax. They're so aroused, their arousal level is so high so much of the time that they're just not able to relax and rest very easily anyway, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And
I
because of all
always
the
know when my daughter's
volatility and
ill because she like chills out, and I'm like, oh no, there's something really wrong.
yeah, no, that's exactly, and that's what's happening in our house tonight. So it's 7:30, and normally we do a routine, a very strict routine, where my partner would be starting to kind of get him into bed at this point. So it's not that different, but it is also different because he's poorly. He was sent home from school sick. He was being sick, and I've just been up to see him, and he's just really lethargic and just like, but sweet and kind of, yeah, more like, what word did you use? Just sort of, well,
I can't remember. I can't remember what I just
resting.
said. I'm a middle-aged woman. I can't remember anything I just said. But yeah, I definitely get more cuddles when she's ill as well.
Mm,
Oh, cuddles. Unfortunate that you're ill, but here I am getting some cuddles. So
mm,
yeah, I think it's very unusual to have any kind of restful state really in the whole setup at home.
mm.
So I was explaining we have got some therapy on the ASF at the moment, which is really helpful. And I was explaining to the therapist how I really look forward to getting in the car to go to work because I've got a 1 hour journey. I've got my little travel mug. I get it all set up. I've got my Audible book on, and I'm like, oh, now I'm by myself in a car. And she was like, oh wow, that says a lot, doesn't it? That's like the highlight of my week. It's me getting in the car with a travel mug. So yeah, not ideal. Um, but we hear a lot about
Yeah,
it on the training, don't we? I think I was reflecting, and I think when we've been delivering training recently and talking to caregivers with your research and with my research as well, we hear a lot about rest framed as a requirement and something you should be getting, and this whole kind of story about self-care and what does self-care look like and how can you practice self-care. And I don't think it goes down well. Like, I think it's met with quite a lot of feeling from people, and myself on occasion as well, definitely. Like, you don't know what you're talking about because you've not got a clue about what's going on at home. So it just feels like there's that disconnect, isn't it, in the way it's spoken about a lot.
definitely. For me, the self-care thing as well is because it's so marketized. So it's that sort of hashtag self-care thing, where it's like really tokenistic and kind of naff. And, you know, well, you talk about have a bath, just have a bath, and
Have a
that's gonna
bath.
solve all your
It's going to be all
problems.
right. You go and have a nice hot soak, and when you come out of that bath and the kid's still screaming and won't leave you be and hasn't eaten their dinner and it's on the floor and the dog's eaten it and puked, you've had a bath, though, haven't you? You've had a bath. So that's great. Yeah, and I think as well, there's all those things in there that I think we were talking about as well when we were delivering our recent training about mindfulness and all that kind of what's the word? I'm just thinking all those kind of thoughts that you have to do these things and they have to be done for a certain amount of time or like in a certain way to count and to be effective. And definitely a thing about like, well, you can get up early in the morning or, you could fit it in at night, couldn't you? And I don't know about anybody else, but if it comes to self-care in the evening, mostly it's like me comatose in front of Netflix and I can't function and I don't really talk to my husband. And we both just sit there like, zombies really in front of the telly because we're exhausted all the time. Like there's no energy left at the end of the day. And we tried for a while when my daughter first came home. Well, when she first came home, it was lockdown, but then there was the eat out summer, wasn't there? Eat out, eat out
Eat
to
out to
help
help
out.
out.
That was it. Oh, so we did our bit for our country. And we went and started doing some date nights, and we were both so tired, like so tired. It was such an effort to get out. And then when you go out and you have this intense time together that you don't have the rest of the time, and you're doing your self-care and you're having quality time with your partner, we just argued and spent like 50 quid on a meal to argue over, which
Mm.
did not seem like an investment really. So I
Mm.
think you get set up to fail sometimes with some of the expectations around what you
And the
should be
pressure,
doing. Yeah, the
the pressure
pressure,
for it to be a
definitely.
certain way.
To have a really
Um,
nice time when you've got all this other
yeah.
stuff going on. Yeah.
And when you talk about that, it's almost like it's another to do, isn't it? And that's what it can feel like sometimes on the coaching programs. It can feel like if you talk about self-care and like you must be, you need to be doing self-care, it can feel like yet another task on the list that
Yes,
people
very
need to,
much
oh, I've got to
so.
do that as well. Like you're saying, I've got to get up early and do the mindfulness and I've got to do, it's another blooming to do, which none of
Uh,
us need.
no, and I think there's that power differential a lot of the time when you're on training or on a call or you're with a therapist or you're with maybe not so much therapeutic stuff because they should be a bit more aware of that. But when you feel like gosh, somebody's paid for this, they've invested in it, I have to, or I've invested in it. And okay, I should be taking this advice on board. I should be, receiving this gratefully. There's that gratitude thing as well. I should be grateful for being told that I need to go and do this. But what I think we covered a lot when we spoke to caregivers on our recent training was about self-advocacy. And I think that's really key to saying to somebody, okay, that's a really interesting suggestion, but that's not going to work for us because of ABC. Can we look at it in a different way? Or, what I think might work is this. Can you help me figure that out? So I think coming back at people and saying, yep, self-care, that's great, very generic. Can we individualize it to actually this situation with our family?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
to self-advocate, that takes a level of energy, doesn't it? And it's effortful. And if you're absolutely done in, that's quite hard as well.
And what are we actually meaning by rest? We're meaning, hopefully, the opposite of effortful. That's the thing, isn't
Yeah.
it? We don't want to
Yeah.
be making more effort. It's hard to really drill it down into what we mean, isn't it? But by rest. But I think for me, it's not effortful. It's about something that's actually relaxing, which isn't
Yeah.
actually necessarily that easy for
No.
anyone to do.
No. But I do think it comes in snippets. And I think sometimes you just have to think snippet was good enough. Good enough for
Mm,
today. So
mm,
today I was trying to finish off some work and I knew I really wanted to get it done before this bank holiday weekend. And the boys were playing in the garden. I didn't want to stop them playing. They were having a great time, but I was finding it really distracting. And so I got one of my lads is got bigger, so he's got really massive. All of my kids, should I say, have got additional needs. So he's got really big ear defenders now. So I put his ear defenders on. Do you know what? I found that restful. In that solved a problem for me. I was able to take a step back. I didn't feel the pressure of thinking, I don't want to stop the plane, but I don't want to move because I'm more like in my little workplace here now. Um, so I think it's redefining it as whatever works for you in that moment when you need to take a step back from things being quite so hard.
mm.
That's it's like taking the edge off. It's hard all the time. I think sometimes that's the best we can do, isn't it?
I think that's a
And
really
that's
important
okay.
point about what you can do in the moment as well, isn't it? Because the sort of image of rest is often that it's something separate and away from normal life,
like
you know,
planned as well,
holidays.
premeditated rest. Yeah, yeah, which
Mm,
we're not often all going to get at all. So yeah, something in the moment to just prioritize the fact that what I need matters. Like I do have a need and it matters, because I
mm,
think that just gets totally pushed down, doesn't it, all the time?
big time. And people, well, when my research really found, it was one of the main findings was that people find it really, really difficult to identify and meet needs as FASD caregivers because it's so overwhelming and they forget that they even have needs. It's like,
Mhm.
what, you know, the idea of they've sort of lost sight of that they have needs and that they should be you know, that they could
I
even start thinking about
Yeah,
that.
I think that goes back to that powerlessness stuff you were talking about, Anna, in that um we're saying that, people feel like they haven't got needs, but also we're trying all the time to make things better for our kids, aren't we? We're trying to be in control of what feels like a really out of control situation,
Mhm.
like there aren't the services, there aren't the resources, things at school are going to pot, or their health's going to pot. Or this week I noticed my little girl's eye wobbles come on quite strong recently, and I'm thinking, oh God, not another thing to worry about, not another thing. I got to take her to this appointment and explain that now. So it's all of those things that all the time are a barrage, and we're trying to sort and we're trying to make sense, and our brains are desperately trying to work out a story out of all of this. How does this all make sense? And all of that is completely overwhelming and out of control. So I think there's something there about that sense of overwhelm and that sense of being productive, because it gives me a sense of control. Like
Absolutely.
I have to get these things done because I can't do anything. I can't do F all about this stuff over here.
Absolutely. I think that's massive. Um, that sense of control through productivity, like you say, like,
Yeah.
and the out of control can be different with different kids with FASD. But for sure, my son feels out of control himself a lot of the time. And there's a knock on of that. It's sort of projected into us so that we then feel out of control, especially because his response to feeling so powerless, helpless, out of control is those challenging, really difficult, aggressive, violent behaviors and stuff.
Yeah.
So that obviously is going to make us feel more out of control. And yeah, I've been there so many times. Well, I'm always there with that thing of like the endless to-do
Project,
list.
I absolutely do that. Like I've got a planner with like a list, with an extra list, with like an action plan and a 5 year
Yeah,
plan attached to it. And that is definitely my way of coping in one way. And then I think what we were finding as well, and definitely we've discussed about before within ourselves, is if you stop and rest, are all these feelings going to overwhelm me? Like I really think that's a fear, isn't it? Like, and I'm going to say chronic sorrow, Anna, because you love that, don't you?
get
Don't you
it
love
in.
it?
Get
There's a
it in.
theory, guys, called chronic sorrow.
You know
And
what?
it,
Al Coates talked about that yesterday at the FASD Island conference. He meant he didn't call it chronic sorrow. He called it something like constant sorrow or something. It was something similar, but
yeah,
yeah.
like a never ending sense of loss about the situation, the kids, just one after the other, micro, mini little losses or big ones that just collate and form this massive kind of sense of yeah, of really painful big feelings within us all, I think, in this area of life as parents, as people who love somebody with a lifelong neurodisability. And that's not to say that their lives are tragic or our lives are tragic. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that there's those feelings that are there. And I think one of the worries is that if I stop and if I take this rest, those feelings will take over and I will never come out of that pit. And I can't
Mm,
afford to do that because I've got kids and I've got a job
mm.
and I've got stuff to do. So if it's all well and good you telling me to stop, but I can't afford to do that. I think that's a real
I think
genuine
that's I think that's
fear.
massive. Yeah.
Yeah.
For everyone, there's often fear and avoidance of feeling feelings because it's uncomfortable to various different degrees.
Mm,
But yeah, particularly in this situation, I think that can definitely be a thing.
mm.
Like, yeah, you can't afford to, like you say, to just get into a kind of um bad state of
And I
like,
think, yeah, I think culturally we're taught, like, I'm just owning white British culture here when I talk culturally because that's all I can speak of my own. But like that navel gaze, you can't be navel gazing. You've just got to keep going, haven't you? We literally got no choice, have we? There's
mm,
not the support, there's not the resources. And I think it's worth acknowledging at this point that you and I have managed to get respite, and we have a direct payment that's funded for us to have carers, and that took 2 years to get. And I'm a social worker, so maybe I was able to navigate that easier. I don't know. But the majority of caregivers out there, FASD caregivers, are not getting funded respite, are not getting short breaks, whatever it's called in your local authority. And there's a myriad of very difficult hurdles, barriers, obstacles to cross to be able to get that.
yeah.
So that need for respite, that need for a break, that genuine requirement for people to stop and then realize that when you do stop, I can genuinely tell you guys, it didn't overtake me and the feelings haven't killed me, and I'm not in a swamp of despair. And when I do get a rest, what I realize is that my sense of humor returns. That's like one of the first things, because I'm
Mm.
not funny the rest of the time, am I, Anna? I'm just not
I was just
funny.
gonna say, I'm sure I don't think it's absent
A
normally.
lightness, a lightness in my
Yeah.
spirit, I'd call it. And then also, I think you taught me about that sensory overwhelm that we're constantly in all the time. I don't know about everyone else's house, but ours is very noisy. And my daughter uses a lot of vocalizing type stimming behaviors. Or like this morning, getting a dress, and it's just like la 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 ba ba da ba 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 ba, all this the whole time. And then when we went away for that one night, and I know you guys go places where it's quiet, and I was like, this is amazing. It was like
It's
having the ear defense on
amazing.
the whole time. Like it was just
Oh
like,
my God.
so
Yeah,
it's
because
trying and
it's a massive thing that, isn't it? Like the sensory underwhelm of the Airbnb, particularly one that we've been to recently. My God, there's nothing. There's big windows and there's just fields and no people and it's silent and it's just so nice. It's so amazing. When we get there, I'm just like throwing myself on the sofa and just like because it's just that feeling of freedom as well,
yeah,
of
yeah,
like,
because a lot of the time that feeling of being constrained, we've talked about a lot, haven't we? Like there's not the freedom, there's not the independence, because our kids are developmentally delayed. Your independence is delayed. Your parenting is,
yeah,
it feels stuck. You feel stuck. You feel like you're not progressing in your life, your career. Other options you might want to have pursued, dreams, hopes. That's, you're grieving for that as well. The things I would have wanted to be doing. I'm coming up for 50. I want to like shave my head, get a camper van, and go round the coast, of England. But like that's looking unlikely because everyone needs to find a school by the time I'm 50 that meets their needs. So it's all these things that we're constantly compromising and negotiating that are hard, really hard. And I think it's really important, like with all the things we've said, we probably should wrap it up soon because who's going to want to listen to us for much longer? Because we're very funny and very interesting, and we have a dancing monkey in the background there, and she can come back on at the end. Um, but I think it's really important to acknowledge with all the things we've said and the fact that we're really lucky that we do go respite, that the majority of people, what can we suggest works? What would we kind of, with our training and the way we're supporting caregivers and specifically adopters in this area via social care, how would we suggest that people go about getting anything like a rest? What
yeah.
would, yeah,
I think one of the really important things that's come out of the work we've done is that it looks different to different people. So that's
yeah,
one of the things. So finding what works for you in terms of rest, and that can be
yeah,
really different. So thinking of one participant who finds physical stuff restful, who needs to get out in the garden and do something physical that will really, take his mind off the worries as well. And there's very different things work for different people. So on that, what, apart from the kind of going somewhere really sensory underwhelming and peaceful, what else works?
Stealing your child's ear defenders. I'm definitely
Oh
going to
yeah,
do
there's that
that.
as well.
Or I might get some of those little ones that just pop in and you just bring the tone of the conversation down a bit. I really think that might help me with the vocal stimming. Yeah, I think it's really moving, like we've spoken about before, from that concept of self-care, which we do think, I do agree, it's overdone. It's over commercialized. It's kind of it comes with a lot of privilege, doesn't it? That kind of story about self-care that a lot of people don't have. So acknowledging that and moving towards self-compassion, I think that's what we were hoping to deliver on for our participants, the people we're working with. And is it Kristen or Kirsten Neff? I always forget whether it's Kristen or Kirsten. Anyway,
yeah.
There we go. So she's like the big cheese with self-compassion, and I think there's just those 3 steps of self-compassion, isn't there? That this is really hard for me right now. I'm not alone. A lot of the time, people go through this kind of something similar to this kind of shit or stuff, and then it's going to be okay. It will be okay. And I think those 3 steps can be really broken down in your daily life when we're in those kind of situations where we can grab like a micro rest or whatever that might be called, to say, I think that middle one's really important. I'm not alone, because I think it can be so isolating in this life that we live in. So isolating. We feel like our kids' needs aren't understood, their conditions aren't understood, what we're going through isn't understood, even by close friends and family, maybe not resonating that with us. And breaking down that sense of isolation to give us that release. I think rest, relief, and release are all really interconnected concepts for me. To say, okay, the truth is, I'm not alone in this. And honestly, I think even if you can just name one way of getting support or finding someone to chat with, and it can just be, I think your caregivers in your research said, not even necessarily about the situation, just to chat with somebody about maybe something different, just a bit of a release from the whole thinking about your kids' needs all the time. Like, is it like a hobby? Is it something totally out of the ballpark? Is it something new or different, or meeting new people? I really like that about going to the gym, because I meet people from all different walks of life. I like that. So I think if we can break down that sense of isolation, recognize that this is difficult, and give yourself some compassion and kindness for that, I think that can really help.
Definitely. I think that's a really good example of what can help in the moment as well, that we mentioned earlier, that thing of like, what can you do to actually rest, even in the midst of,
Crazy.
the crazy and the aggressive, and, that for me, it's a cliche, but the deep breathing and the kind of mindfulness type techniques do help me in the moment to rest more, like doing like 5 pace breathing where you breathe longer on the out breath, all that stuff about getting out and being in nature, taking the dog for a walk, all those things that you can do day-to-day life that you can kind of build in. And then for me, it's like you said, there's different kinds of rest with different kinds of people as well, so it kind of crosses over with connection, doesn't it? But for me, like, it can be restful in a sense to do something that's totally, for me, that's totally not to do with FASD and the situation. For example, I do singing, I did that the other night, and that was, it takes you out of yourself as well. That was kind of restful in a way. Also physical, because I feel kind of calmer when I've been singing.
Yeah. And
In
also
a
it's
physical
that different part of your personality, your gift, your talents, you just feel like you're reclaiming something of
yeah,
yourself, or maybe
exactly,
your
yeah,
old self, maybe something you used to do that you haven't done in a while. I think
yeah,
that's for your identity, your sense of identity seems to like well, it does slip, doesn't it? Or feel
Yeah,
like it's disappeared.
yeah,
So
that's massive.
how do people get in touch if they want to know more about what Beck and Anna can offer other than on a Friday night when we both need a rest and we've got someone dancing in the background?
Oh, the ironies.
How can they find out more about what we're doing?
They can visit the Neurowise website, neurowise.org, and there's a contact form on there, or they can email Anna@neurowise.org. So
Yeah, that's
um,
great.
one more thing I wanted to say on the different types of rest is that then I think that how I see rest in a sort of without thinking about it way is that sort of really calm, peaceful stuff of just lying down. I used to love lying down. Just
You've
lying
got a
around
real
is.
thing about lying down.
I've
You
got
get
such a thing about
very,
lying down because we
yeah.
don't do enough of it. I used to love it. I want to do more of it.
I have to get you a stretcher and take you to the conference in Salford in June. Oh, we're at a conference in Salford in June as well, if anyone wants to come and see us perform live. But yeah, we'll have to get you on stage in the Anna would like to
We
deliver this
on.
presentation lying down. This is a preferred state of being. Oh dear.
So there's that, but then also like, and I've talked about doing different things and like hobbies, like that can serve a different function, but also kind of social stuff like going out, having fun. God forbid, being with friends,
Yeah,
doing something a little bit wild, that sort of letting go. Not very wild these days, but do you know what I mean? Like letting go in that way as well.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
letting go of control, isn't it? Partly, like we've said before, letting go and releasing, like you've said, expressing. There's different kinds of rest. I think that's really important.
And I think it starts off with people, because I'm just thinking of like the people that feel trapped at home and the people that feel that they can't go out and they can't have fun. And also underlying all of this is the massive financial constraints and burden that a lot of our families experience.
Yeah,
And there could be loads of reasons for that, or like relationship breakdowns or difficulties because of all the stress and the issues that our families experience. I totally get that too. So there could be loads of intersections of all of those strains going on in your life, and you feel completely stuck, and you feel like, oh, it's all well and good for you to like sit there and talk about like breathing or going out or yeah, well, that's a different life, that's not my life, you don't know what you're talking about. And I do see where that is coming from entirely. And I think the first thing is just to, in some way, find within yourself a sense of, I deserve something. Like I just deserve something.
yeah,
And I know when I've been feeling really low, and it's really something to kind of dig out of that and think, okay, what is it today that I deserve? And is it like, I know it sounds a bit rubbish really, but is it just something like, I like a bit of moisturizer, is it a bit of moisture, not a full bath, but maybe just a bit of just something. I deserve something that I can just enjoy for myself. And I wonder if there's something about reclaiming that, even in, like, we're not talking about the hard times disappearing, and we're absolutely not negating that they're always there and they're very challenging and incredibly different in different ways for everyone. But whether there's some way of reclaiming just something good for you in the day, in a whole day. I don't know.
yeah,
Just trying to think of those people that might be there really.
yeah. I think that's really important.
Okay, we really need to wrap up because we don't want to bore people to death either. All right.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah.
And if only I can just get through this list,
Yeah.
I'll then feel more in control.
Bye. Stop the recording. Okay. It says here we